Okay, and we are back right now in chapter 11.3. Yesterday we looked at some slides and we read a section on nationalism, which is also part of the same chapter 11.3. We're going to continue now with sectionalism, which is the second half-ish of that very short chapter. These are the pages right here that you'll need to refer to if you're following along in your textbook, 381 to 384. All right, so our learning objective for today. You will be able to define the word sectionalism and explain the events that led to more division in the United States. So from here until the end of the school year, that theme of division in the United States is going to really come to the fore. And we're going to be looking at a lot of things that divided this country up and then ultimately led to a major bloodbath in the 1860s. So let's review. Where did we leave off? Well, you remember from a couple days ago the invention of the cotton gin, some new technology that led to the demand for more cotton as a raw material, and it led to the spread of slavery throughout the South. Remember, slavery had already existed in the United States, but having the cotton gin made cotton much more profitable for people, for plantation owners, but it still required lots and lots of labor, meaning a lot of workers in the fields, and those workers were slaves. Second thing we got to review, nationalism grew under the American system. Sectionalism threatened to tear the nation apart. So let's get into the new content for today. How about it, huh, rascals? All right, so what is sectionalism? Here is our definition that we're going to be going off of. So sectionalism is a feeling of loyalty to one's own region or section of the country. So this is the key word there, is region. It's not loyalty to the whole country, it is to the specific region that you live in. So when one part of the country looks out for its own interests is another way that we could say that. So there are a whole bunch of regions in the country. We typically live in what you could call the upper Midwest. Some people call it the Great Lakes region. If you remember from when we did the colonies earlier in this year, up here east of New York, this is called New England. We have the South, we have the West, several different regions in this country. So key vocabulary for today. Popular sovereignty, you all already know what that is. It's a government in which people rule. And it has another meaning in this context that we're going to be exploring now. It also means that states should be able to decide for themselves. Well, decide what for themselves, you might be asking? Well, just hang on. We're going to get to that in a second. So nullification, or to nullify something, is to legally overturn a law or cancel a law. That's going to be coming up a lot, especially when we start talking about Andrew Jackson, the 7th president. Yeah, you know him as the guy in the $20 bill. Or if you're anything like me, you only know people on the $5 bill and lower. So Abe and George. All right, also compromise. You know what this means. I hope you guys can compromise in your life. It's a settlement or an agreement in which all of the parties give a little. So everybody kind of meets in the middle, we might say. All right, so more information about sectionalism. So a minute ago, we looked at that first slide with the definition. We talked about regions of the country. So right here, we have 3 regions of the country that were really important in the early 1800s, the part of the story that we're looking at right now. We have the North, we have the South, and we have the West. Now these are competing regions. They have, the people that live in these regions have different interests, and they are focused on meeting their own goals and their own interests in getting things done for their region. So we have the North. North was focused on factories, which included manufacturing of finished goods and trade. The South, now, they depend on the plantation economy that relied heavily on slavery. As you can see, I believe it's an old black and white picture, but I believe that is I think it's a cotton plantation right there. And then the West, which was largely undeveloped, but pioneers, or people who moved out to the undeveloped West, were excited by new settlements on cheap land. This is going to be the area where a lot of the clashes between these two sections or regions of the country play out in the West. So starting with this part of the story right here. So in 1817, think way back, that's 203 years ago, we had a pretty good balance in this country. We had 11 free states. These are the green ones up here. Notice Wisconsin, not a state yet. And then we had 11 states that had slavery. And they are the gold states down here. See how I did that? I worked Packer colors into this. Ha ha ha. That's for all you Vikings fans out there. All right. So on this map, you can take a moment and pause in a second. I'm just going to let you do that on your own. So I'm going to skip over it for a second. But these different colors on this key down here tell you what each of these regions means. All right. So sectionalism becomes a major issue when Missouri applied to become a state. Missouri is the show me state. That's its nickname. It's this red thing right here. But this little piece of it right there, you get some really good baseball there. They got 11 World Series champions. It's St. Louis, home of the Cardinals. Missouri wanted to allow slavery in their state when they entered the Union. Okay, but if you go back to the last slide, you look right here. We have 11 free states and 11 slave states. That would upset the balance of states and representation in Congress. So what do we mean by upset the balance? Well, now slave states, there are going to be more slave states, 12, compared to free states or states that did not have slavery, which was 11. So the balance is now offset. Think of it like a seesaw or a teeter-totter. All of a sudden, the slave states are down on the ground because there are more of them than the non-slave states, and the non-slave states in the north are freaking out and kicking their legs up in the air saying, hey, something's got to be done about this. So what could be done about it? It's the Missouri Compromise. I'm going to let you take a look at this video right here. It's 2 minutes long. It's going to explain the Missouri Compromise, but I'm going to give you a little piece of it right here. So Missouri was entered into or admitted into the Union right here. That becomes a state. You can tell now it's not this unorganized orange color over here. So the rule was to keep that balance. The Missouri Compromise also allowed for the addition of Maine as a free state. So now we're at 12 and 12. We've achieved that balance. Maine, incidentally, used to be part of Massachusetts right here, but it became its own state right here. So we keep that balance, and you wonder what this funny red line is that runs across. So another part of the compromise said that from this moment, from 1820 on, slavery could not exist south of this parallel right here. And this would eventually extend all the way out to the Pacific Ocean through California. So this agreement was reached and created kind of by a guy named Henry Clay, known as the Great Compromiser. Great fitting nickname. So to keep balance in Congress, I showed you on that last slide, Missouri would be allowed to enter as a slave state, but then Maine would be admitted at the same time as a free state. So this kept the balance between slave and non-slave states, and the line would be drawn at 36 degrees and 30 minutes across right here, the bottom border of Missouri, which is now the border of Missouri and Arkansas. And slavery would be allowed south of that line, but it would be banned north of that line. So it's a pretty big area over here where slavery would not be allowed to take root moving forward. So I'm going to leave you with the reading, those 4 pages for this chapter. You can go over these slides on your own too and watch the linked videos. There are 3 questions that will be posted in Google Classroom that you will need to answer when you complete this assignment. I hope you are all doing well, and I hope to see you again soon.